The Adventures of Timothy, the Little Mouse. Timothy was a small mouse with big dreams. He lived in a cozy little hole under the kitchen floor of an old farmhouse. Timothy had shiny black eyes, soft gray fur, and a long pink tail. Every night, he watched the humans in the kitchen as they cooked, talked, and ate. Timothy often wondered, what is it like outside this kitchen? What adventures could I find? One night, Timothy decided it was time for his first big adventure. He peeked out of his hole and sniffed the air. The kitchen was quiet, and everyone was asleep. Timothy took a deep breath, put on his tiny scarf, made from an old thread, and tiptoed out of his hole. At first, Timothy was cautious. He scurried across the kitchen floor, past the big wooden table, and reached the open door. The outside world, he whispered, his little heart racing. Timothy had never been outside before. He was nervous, but more than that, he was excited. Outside, Timothy discovered a huge world. The grass was tall, and the air smelled fresh. Suddenly, he saw something glittering in the grass. It was a small, shiny button. Wow! My first treasure! Timothy squeaked, picking up the button with his tiny paws. He put it in his scarf, happy with his find. As Timothy continued, he heard a buzzing noise. He looked up and saw a large, yellow bee flying around a flower. Timothy waved and called, "Hello, Mr. Bee." The bee buzzed closer, surprised to see a little mouse in the garden. "Hello, little mouse," the bee said in a deep, buzzing voice. "What are you doing outside?" "I'm looking for an adventure." Timothy replied with a big smile. "Do you know where I can find one?" The bee thought for a moment and then pointed with one of its tiny legs. "Go to the big oak tree at the end of the garden. You will find something interesting there." "Thank you, Mr. Bee." Timothy squeaked happily and scampered off towards the big oak tree. The journey to the oak tree was long for a tiny mouse. He passed by tall flowers, jumped over small pebbles, and even climbed a little hill. Finally, he reached the giant oak tree. He looked up in awe. It was the tallest thing he had ever seen. At the base of the tree, Timothy found a strange, small door. The door was bright red, with a golden doorknob. A tiny door just my size. Timothy thought, feeling both nervous and excited. He took a deep breath and opened it. Inside, Timothy found a small room with tiny furniture, a table, a chair, and even a tiny bed. Who lives here? Timothy wondered, looking around. Just then, he heard a voice behind him. "Hello, who are you?" said a tiny hedgehog wearing glasses. Timothy spun around and saw the hedgehog staring at him. "Oh. I am Timothy. I live under the kitchen floor," he said shyly. "Who are you?" "I'm Professor Prickles, the wisest hedgehog in the garden," the hedgehog said with a proud smile. "What brings you here, Timothy?" "I want an adventure," Timothy replied. "The bee told me to come to the oak tree. Do you know where I can find an adventure?" Professor Prickles thought for a moment and nodded. "Ah, yes. There is a secret in this garden, Timothy. A treasure hidden in a blue flower. But it's a dangerous journey for a little mouse like you." Timothy's eyes sparkled with excitement. "I'm ready. Where is this blue flower?" Professor Prickles pointed to a patch of flowers near the fence. "The blue flower is hidden among those. But be careful, Timothy. There is a tricky cat named Whiskers who guards the flowers." Timothy gulped, but nodded bravely. "Thank you, Professor Prickles. I will be careful." And with that, he hurried off toward the flower patch. When Timothy arrived, he could see many flowers, yellow, red, and even purple, but only one blue flower. It stood in the middle, shining under the moonlight. Timothy's heart raced as he approached it. But just as he reached for the flower, he heard a soft, scary sound. Meow. Timothy froze. Slowly, he turned around and saw a pair of big, green eyes staring at him. It was Whiskers, the cat. Whiskers licked his paws and grinned. Well, well, what do we have here? A little mouse on a treasure hunt. Timothy's mind raced. What could he do? Then, he remembered the shiny button in his scarf. Quickly, he held it up and waved it in front of Whiskers. Look! A shiny toy. Whiskers' eyes widened, and he pounced on the button, forgetting all about Timothy. The cat batted the button around, meowing happily. Timothy saw his chance and grabbed the blue flower. Inside the flower, he found a small silver acorn, glittering like a gem. The treasure, he whispered, holding it tightly. Without looking back, he ran as fast as his tiny legs could carry him, all the way back to Professor Prickles' house. Professor Prickles was waiting at the door. You did it, Timothy. You found the treasure. Timothy panted, out of breath, but smiling. Yes, and I even outsmarted the cat. The hedgehog laughed and patted Timothy on the back. You are a brave little mouse, Timothy. Keep that silver acorn as a memory of your adventure. Timothy thanked Professor Prickles and made his way back to the farmhouse. He crawled into his cozy little hole, holding the silver acorn close. As he drifted off to sleep, Timothy thought about his next big adventure.